hit record here. Really focused on generating the wealth for tomorrow and for our family and loved ones and everything like that. So without further ado, Jacob, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you let me know if you need anything. But welcome to our brokerage here, Jacob, and I'm looking forward to this session.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Just wanted to say thank you all for having me here. 5 years ago, I couldn't tie down my friends and family to sit there and listen to me talk about Bitcoin. So this opportunity is not lost on me. I'm extremely grateful that you guys are here to listen and learn about Bitcoin. So I want to do my best to try and explain it all to you. I'm here to answer questions. You're going to have tons of more questions after this session is done. And we're always here to help kind of clarify some of the things that are going to come up. Like you mentioned, yes, I am a realtor. I've been a broker for 15 years. I got my start in real estate. I got into real estate because I wanted to invest. And so I've been in it for a while. I'm going to continue to be in real estate. It's my first love. I will never be able to kind of stop dealing in real estate. But Bitcoin is something that has truly just changed everything for me. And that's why I've decided to start a company. And we've done this for a few years. So I want to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that here. Yes, I can. Okay. So, all right. So the number one question I get from people is, what is Bitcoin? And before we can answer that, I want to just say, let's take it back to 1995. How would you answer somebody who's asking you, what's the internet? Right? It's really all perspective. It's your life experiences on what's going to benefit for you. Some people would say it's the yellow pages on the internet. Some people would say it's the encyclopedia online. Some would say it's a great way to share cat videos. There's a million and one different things, like Zoom, like this, we're communicating with each other. There are so many use cases that the internet has had, and they're going to continue to have, that we can even contemplate in 1995. Simply put, though, the internet is a communication protocol. It's a way for us to be able to communicate with anyone, anywhere in the world that has a internet connection. Bitcoin is the money layer of that. Simply put, Bitcoin is the money layer. It is a decentralized global monetary network that allows us all to communicate and transfer value peer-to-peer with no third-party intermediary, okay? I don't want to be lost on just how revolutionary this asset, invention, discovery, however you want to phrase it, really is. Electricity was a pretty big one. It kind of helped us get jump-started on a bunch of things. The PC came out, then the internet came in that allowed all those PCs to talk to one another, and now we have Bitcoin. Like I mentioned, it's the internet layer, or the money layer of the internet that allows us to communicate and transfer value to one another. Now, what is the main innovation that Bitcoin actually solved? It's digital scarcity. What does that mean? So back in the day, we all know when the internet first came out, we always do these email chains, send this to 10 other people. If I send you a picture of my dogs, I don't lose those pictures. Computers are amazing at copying and duplicating and sending out information, and that's what they're really good at. But the biggest issue was that we weren't able to actually have digital scarcity, which is why we've always needed a central party to kind of be the gatekeeper or to keep track of everything, to say, okay, yes, this person has sent it to here and there. Everyone's going to kind of keep track of everything. So what Bitcoin does is it actually allows you to transfer a digitally scarce asset from one person to another. So if I send you something, I no longer have that asset in my possession. It's a very foreign concept to kind of get used to, but just picture it like that. I'm sure you guys have been even hearing right now about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. That's the new buzzword right now. While I don't think it's anywhere near where it's going to be in the next few years, it is a technology that's very important. As realtors, you will be very easy to understand the value of an NFT in the sense of if you had a land registry title on an NFT, and if I send that to you digitally, it's going to be a way for us to showcase how quickly we can transfer value to one another without the need of a land registry, 2 weeks, whatever, however long it takes. It's just going to streamline a lot of things, okay? But the main innovation is the fact that it's digital scarcity. Now, what does that mean? Digital scarcity is the first time in humanity we've ever come across something that actually has absolute scarcity. And the only reason we can do this is because it is digital. And digital allows us to do it math, it's binary, it's just digits on a screen. So the actual protocol has a limit that in the entire history of Bitcoin, we are only ever going to have 21 million. And I'm going to get to how we can prove that or verify all that. This is the inflation schedule of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is open and it's verifiable. So when we're on Zoom, when you're using Facebook, when you're using Google, you are using the front end of it. You're using what the actual producers of the company owners have allowed for you to see. But you can't actually see the code that you're running it on, understandably so, because it's their own asset. However, with Bitcoin, to participate in it, you actually need to run your own node, and everything is verifiable. It's an open source protocol. 3,000 lines of code. Bitcoin is actually a very dumb and simple technology. It does one thing, and it does it very, very well. That is it. And when you're running Bitcoin, you can verify this. So when you're verifying it, you actually see the inflation schedule. I don't want to get too in depth on the details of it, but this is basically the schedule on how many Bitcoins are ever going to be in production. And this is also an inflation schedule of how many are coming to market on a consistent basis. The same cannot be said with our monetary system. Okay, so this is something that it's easier for us to kind of comprehend. When you look at it, when you have $100,000 in the bank right now, you don't know what is the bottom denominator. What ratio is that 100,000 of that entire monetary network? Because the bottom denominator is constantly being changed, whatever reason there is, whether you're a fan of the monetary policies or you're not. At the end of the day, it is the fact that people can change the monetary policy, and we don't know how many dollars will be in existence in the next 5 years, 10 years, even next year. Nobody can really tell you. Even the government in charge can't tell you. Whereas with Bitcoin, it is a monetary network that is stable. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can make any changes to this. If you make any changes to this inflation schedule or the protocol, you're no longer running Bitcoin. You can make these changes, but that just means you're going to fork off and you're going to do your own thing, but you're not actually participating on Bitcoin. Bitcoin has rules, but there are no rulers. That's a very key thing to keep in mind. There is no admin function. I have no rights on Bitcoin that somebody else does not, and the same goes for them. We are all operating on a platform that we can just all be on the same page and say, hey, these are the rules that we're all abiding by, and that's going to allow us a strong foundation to do the rest of the stuff. Now, I get into debates with people all the time. Is Bitcoin money? What is it? I'm not making claims of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is merely a technology, guys. It's a technology, and what humans end up doing with this technology are going to be countless different iterations of it. However, these are the characteristics of money, right? We've got gold, we've got the fiat, we've got stocks, real estate, and Bitcoin. They all have their pros and cons. But a lot of people are looking at Bitcoin as a form of money because of its characteristics. But again, not every country around the world has acknowledged Bitcoin as a form of currency. El Salvador has. There are a few other countries that we're expecting to jump on board in the next year or two, but that is a discussion for another day. But I've included this chart for people to kind of just see some of the characteristics of Bitcoin. Now, what we can all agree on is that Bitcoin is a commodity and it is a property. The SEC in the United States recognizes Bitcoin as property, digital property, and Canada recognizes it as commodity, as well as many other countries around the world, the UK, Australia, Japan, Europe. They all have very friendly views towards Bitcoin because they've done their due diligence. And we've had legislation come through anywhere from around 2014 to 2016 is when most of it came through. Canada was one of the first countries in the world that actually approved a Bitcoin ETF. So we are, as a country, one of the front runners of adoption of this technology. Now, when you actually look at market cap and you compare Bitcoin to everything else in the entire planet, there are just a handful of companies that are worth more as a collective, and there's just a couple other commodities that are actually worth more than Bitcoin is at the moment. And that includes, we're top 10. As a Bitcoin company, as a person who likes to educate everyone about Bitcoin, you are undoubtedly, a few of you are going to have the wheels turning right now, and you're going to say, hey, this is something cool. I should look into this. This might be the next big thing. But then what invariably happens is we end up saying, I missed the boat. I missed out on Bitcoin. It had the gains. It's done for. So let me look for the next big thing. Let me chase and find the next Bitcoin. There cannot be another Bitcoin. There will not be another Bitcoin. The circumstances that Bitcoin was created in can never be duplicated. The public has too much information now and is too aware. Bitcoin kind of operated in the shadows, basically in the sense that a lot of people didn't take it seriously. They ignored it. They laughed at it and called it a Ponzi, a tulip bulb, bubbles, whatever you want to call it. And it continuously grew. Now, I've included this price chart here. Since 2010, we've seen close to 6,000. Now, this chart is older, but this gives you a rough idea. But we've had 6,000 other digital assets come to market. But I want you always to consider that Bitcoin is the decentralized monetary network. And when I say decentralized, it literally means nobody controls it. It was put out there into the wilderness, into the public, and it has continued to evolve. Every single other digital asset that has a market share right now, and that goes all the way from the second one, which is Ethereum, they have a group of people in charge of it. They have a marketing department. A large majority of them have gotten shares cheaper and they're selling to the public. And so a lot of these will end up being regarded as securities over the next couple of years when the SEC makes some of the regulations or their rulings. So I highly, highly recommend. I understand the feeling of, oh my God, it's too late. I went through it. I spent months, maybe even a year or two, trying to educate myself on all the other digital assets. But invariably, you're going to come back full circle and you're going to realize Bitcoin is the real innovation. There is no multiple internets. When I tell you send me an email, you don't tell me which internet am I going to send you the email on. There is just one. Bitcoin is the money layer of that particular internet. It is the only one that is not controlled by anyone. Everything else, while they may have value in the future, maybe 1% of them are going to be something that are going to have use cases in the next 10, 20 years. Bitcoin is the blue chip, and everything else is VC-backed companies that are acting as if they're currencies. A lot of them are unfortunately Ponzi's and scams, and this is where we have the biggest issue is the public's perception is Bitcoin and crypto are the exact same thing, and nothing could be further from the truth. They are two completely different animals, and we highly, highly recommend everyone to just educate yourself on Bitcoin for the first 6 months, and if you feel the need to speculate and chase these other coins, I get it. There's always that hunt for more, but at the end of the day, you will do yourself and your family a huge disservice if you ignore Bitcoin thinking there's no innovation there and it's everything else that actually has the innovation. Now, what has happened over the last year alone? As I mentioned earlier, El Salvador adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. It blew my mind because when El Salvador adopted it, I thought it was like, oh wow, okay, this should be something that a lot of people are going to acknowledge and say this is a big deal. So many people came out and said, well, it's just a tiny country. Whereas for me, the way I'm looking at it, where 5 years ago, everyone would just, broad stroke call Bitcoin a Ponzi or a scam. Now we have a sovereign nation that has decided that it makes more sense for them to adopt it as legal tender. And as I mentioned earlier, everyone's going to have different use cases as to what the real value proposition of this asset or this technology is. And for El Salvador, it was remittances. So El Salvador spends close to $400 million a year on remittances. They have a lot of family overseas out of different countries that are sending money back to them. And you have companies like Western Union that take a fairly large chunk to literally be the middle person and just transfer that value to them. And what Bitcoin does is obsoletes them, okay? So El Salvador, as well as many other countries that have high remittance rates, are gonna be looking at Bitcoin as more of a viable option because it puts more money in their citizens' pockets and actually makes everything a lot easier. A lot of countries are looking at adopting as well. We had the largest institutional adoption rate in 2021. We saw Tesla buy about $1.5 billion to put on their reserves. We've got NYDIG, one of the biggest financial companies that's actually the front runner of what's helping all these smaller banks adopt Bitcoin. We had MicroStrategy, brilliant CEO, Michael Saylor. I highly recommend anyone who's interested in what I'm talking about here, listen to Michael Saylor talk. He ended up, because of the COVID shutdown, had to look at somewhere because he saw where inflation was going and all the issues happening around the world. And he was actually had actually spoken badly about Bitcoin years ago. He said it's a casino, it's a gambling, it's, he said all the generic comments that most people say. However, him and his team took a look at it again in 2020, and they ended up starting with a 250 to 500 million allocation. And now they're at about $3 to $6 billion at this point. It's hard to keep track. We have over a dozen, I think at this point, we're at 16 to 18 publicly traded mining companies, so Bitcoin miners. So just to show that institutional growth is happening right now, obviously public corporations have a lot higher due diligence. than the average business has to. So this is just showing that they've actually done all the necessary steps and they're moving forward with it. You've got Fidelity. Fidelity has, I think it was like something crazy, like $4 trillion under management, and they're huge with Bitcoin. They actually started their adoption in 2017. They've been building out all the infrastructure for it. So the growth is happening. It's going to continue to grow. I highly recommend looking at this asset for the long term. Right now, we can look at it. We've had about a 30 to 40% drop from the all-time high. That's from less than 6 months ago. I don't look at Bitcoin as a short-term hold. I look at Bitcoin as a long-term approach as to where the financial system is headed, where people are going to be looking at storing their value. Bitcoin, in my opinion, is a savings technology. I'd love to talk about that one-on-one, or if anyone has any specific questions about it, but nobody can pigeonhole this asset and say, this is what it is. It boils down to what is the use case that the user is looking for, and we go from there. So I don't make any financial recommendations. I'm merely a real estate broker who got obsessed with this asset and decided to start a business and a company in it. I will never tell anybody what kind of exposure to have. The only advice I will ever give anyone is the only wrong allocation you can have towards Bitcoin is a 0% allocation. That's it. If you have 0% allocation, you're going about it the wrong way. Even if you don't understand the technology yet, which, guys, it takes a while. I've been reading and learning about it for well over 5 years now, and I'm still learning something new every single day. There is no bottom to this rabbit hole. There's so many different ways you can go. But I highly recommend getting some sort of exposure, whether it's 0.1%, but it's better to have that 0.1% exposure to this asset than to say, not interested, it's a Ponzi, it's a tulip bulb, it's a scam, because at this point, saying that is just financial negligence at this point, in my opinion. That's why we've created One Bitcoin. Our goal is to educate Canadian businesses and individuals across the country and to try and get Bitcoin in their possession, whichever way we can, whether it is actually buying and selling Bitcoin and helping them set up their own wallets and nodes, whether it's financialized products. We have an RRSP and TFSA eligible product that we are working on right now. We should get the launch in about a week to 2 weeks. We have a whole bunch of stuff coming where we help people sell real estate to buy Bitcoin if they want to kind of even out their portfolio a little bit. If you want to refinance your real estate to buy Bitcoin, we can help you with it all. There is so much more happening. We are obviously just one of many companies working towards this asset. So that is all I've got for the slides. I see I've got some maybe comments in chat, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them my way.
I got my mic muted again. Perhaps a good place to start as well is, for those of us that perhaps have that terminology or thinking, training even from the stock market, where I can go to the stock market and buy one share, where in cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, it's not like that, is it, Jacob? You can buy like a fractional piece of that. And talk to us a little bit about the point of entry. You talked about maybe the worst place to be is to not have any holdings in Bitcoin, but when you see a price of 55, 60,000, that's a hard pill to swallow. So talk to us how that scales down and scales out.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest misconceptions about Bitcoin, and one of the reasons that people always look at other digital assets, is because, oh my God, I can't spend $40, $50, $60,000 on a single Bitcoin. And you don't have to. One full Bitcoin is actually broken down into 100 million sats. So it's the cents version of a full Bitcoin. So you can buy as small as $5, $10 worth of Bitcoin at a time. I have clients that are buying $5, $10 a week, $25 a week. The dollar cost average approach is something that I highly recommend. I have an Excel spreadsheet. If anyone's interested, I would love to send a link to it. And you can calculate anyone that says, oh, it's too expensive. If you bought Netflix, if you bought Uber Eats, if you ate out, if you bought, you spent some sort of extra income on one of those things, you can afford to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. So yes, one of the biggest misconceptions is the unit bias, and that's what pushes people a lot to all the other. It's only 2 cents, and if it doubles, it's going to go to 4. It makes people think that it's a lot easier to make the money. But yes, you can get started at a much smaller rate than what people actually think you can.
Yeah, perfect. And there's a few questions here, and I'll try and help field some of these questions here as we go along and group them together. Dina's also asking, how does one get started? She's a beginner. So talk to us a little bit about that, the first kind of steps to take as a beginner, Jacob.
I love it. So it's easy. all you need to do right now, if anybody wants to actually do it while we're doing this talk, I would love to even send you some Bitcoin at the end of this conversation. All you need right now, whether you have an Apple phone or an Android, you can go to your Apple Play or whatever the store's name is called, and you can download a wallet. I'm going to write a couple of wallets here. There's the Bread wallet. There's the green wallet. There's the blue wallet, and then I think there's one that's Moon. Choose one of them, see which ones they got the good rating on it in your store, and download it. That's all you need to participate in the Bitcoin network. Now, you can go a lot deeper. There's a lot more stuff to do, but for the beginner, all you need is a wallet, and this is something that's going to allow you to receive and send transactions on the Bitcoin network, okay? You have 12 to 24 words. You keep that. That's your password. Even if you end up losing your phone, you can download the exact same app, type in those special words, your secret passphrase, and it'll actually bring you back to your account. It is technology that will blow your mind when you actually use it. And I actually highly recommend, me talking about it and saying all these fantastic things about the asset and what people should do is one thing. But I think for most people, it really clicks when they're using it and they're like, holy, this is something else. There's no driver's license. There's no application process. There's no credit check. It doesn't care about your age, your sex, your race, where you're from. It does not matter. If you have an internet connection, you can download this wallet and you can transact and communicate value with anyone, anywhere in the world.
And let's peel the onion away a little bit on the wallet too. Yeah. Because this is going to be a lot of new terminology for a lot of our guests here, and perhaps you correct me or you steer my next few sentences here. But really, I'm looking for my wallet. Pretend this is my wallet, my Cliff Bar. It really is just a holder of those currencies or of the Bitcoin. Just like when I hold my wallet, it's got my credit card in it to my TD Bank or what have you. Is that a fair way to say it?
Somewhat. I'm actually not a fan of the term wallet. I prefer your keychain. Your wallet is going to allow you to have your keys to access that particular wallet. Okay, we're going to get a little trippy here. I want you to think about the addresses on the Bitcoin network as every single star in the entire universe, because that's how many potential addresses there are. That's why it's impossible to hack it. It's cryptography 101. There's literally more addresses for Bitcoin than there are grains of sand on the planet, okay? So only you know the coordinates of the particular star in the entire universe that you are storing your value. And your wallet has the keys to access that, right? I feel like that's kind of the best way to visually explain to somebody how to be able to really access or where your Bitcoin is. Your Bitcoin is not on your wallet. Your Bitcoin is always on the blockchain. Your wallet has the keys that allows you to access and those Bitcoins and allow you to move and send that value to somebody else. I hope that kind of helps it out.
Yeah, I thought that's what I said. No. Very good. No, that's great stuff. And again, just so we all understand the terminology, crypto, Bitcoin, as we're talking about today, you mentioned addresses. So give us that layman's term of what that means to us or what it means to the network.
So your actual address, you have okay, so let's kind of compare it to emails now. So your public address, so what I would send you, if you owe me $10, I'm going to send you my public address. That's my email address. So you're going to send money to that email address, that public address. Every address also has the private address, the private keys to that address. That's the sign-in, that's the login of the email. And when I receive that money, for me to be able to actually send or transact with that value, I have to have the private keys. Now, here's a really cool one that I think a lot of realtors clicks for them. Imagine having a trust account. We deal with trust accounts on a daily basis, right? We send money, we have to put deposits in, all that kind of fun stuff. Imagine having a trust account that was public and that every single party involved that has something to do with that trust account has access to view that wallet. And there's not one transaction that can be done without everyone being aware of what's happening. It's an immutable wallet. It's an immutable ledger. You cannot undo a transaction. So if I dip my hands into this, into the trust account and I took it out, it's not based on RICO or someone to find out that I did something wrong or, the money's gone. And then we find out. If everyone is involved and we have the public address and saying, this is our address that we're using, everyone can keep their eye on it. You may not be able to actually move the funds yourself, but you can still keep your eye on that fund and make sure nothing has happened to it. It's all public. It's all open. That's the revolutionary aspect of it as well. That it's immutable. You cannot change it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, scrolling back up here, Austin has a question, and you talked about this a little bit throughout your slides. Is there a finite number of any or all the altcoins? I know a lot of the altcoins will just keep pumping out or keep making coins. Talk to us a little bit. Circle back to that finite number.
Great question.
And then versus the others.
Right. So we consider altcoins as an inflation. So if anybody has ever read the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, if you haven't, I highly recommend it, because Bitcoin was the 0 to 1. It was the innovation that revolutionized everything. Everything after that is just the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. It's just iterations of the true innovation. It saddens me because no matter how much I talk about it, I created a company to try and combat it. We just see it's going to be the pets.com. We still have so much bubble territory to continue to grow, and all that crazy stuff that happened in 2017 is going to continuously happen time and time again. It's just an inflation. I personally have zero interest in any other digital assets. I'm not saying they have no value, but my interest is a digital, decentralized monetary network that nobody can control. And for me, there's literally, like, Bitcoin is already won in that field. So there is nothing. Somebody can tell me, oh, well, this has, blockchain for whatever reason. Blockchain, guys, is merely a data set. Blockchains have been around since the 70s. That's all it is. What makes Bitcoin a great invention is the fact that it's a decentralized blockchain. It's a blockchain that nobody can control. And because if it was just a blockchain that I'm in charge of, I can go in there and I can edit it, like changing things on an Excel spreadsheet, and we're back to square one. So I highly recommend everyone to stay away from Ripple, Ethereum, Cardano. Like there's thousands. There's thousands. And if you look at the last 10 years, if you look at the top 10 digital assets, Bitcoin has been consistently number one. Nothing has even come close to overtaking Bitcoin, but the 2 to 10 constantly changing. It's a great way to try and make quick money, but in my opinion, it is the Ponzi, casino, boiler room, penny stock aspect of the industry, and Bitcoin is the blue chip. In 20 years, you're going to want to hand over your Bitcoin to your children. You're not going to want to hand over your Ethereum or Ripple or whatever it is to your kids. Bitcoin is not an asset you're going to want to sell. It's not. It is going to be a savings technology because it is only going to get scarcer and scarcer and scarcer. And just imagine in 1995 that you could buy a piece of the internet. People think it's all about making insane amounts of money, of like making Lambo money, or it's not. It's about being able to maintain your value and not allowing anyone or any entity to dilute your savings. That's really the key innovation of Bitcoin.
Yeah, perfect. Love it. And circling back to the wallet conversation, Tony has a question here. Do you remember how secure is the wallet? You kind of answered that with what you're saying with your own private key and then the public key, and talk to us about the security function behind it. It's mind blowing. As I got to learn it, I found it mind blowing.
It's absolutely insane. The security aspect of Bitcoin it's not hackable. And if anyone tells me, quantum computing is coming, if quantum computing is coming, Bitcoin is the least of our worries. Our, encryption on bank accounts and government accounts, everything is gone. So that's something that we're going to have to deal with in the next 10, 20 years. Now, there are different layers of security when it comes to Bitcoin. I wouldn't recommend somebody to hold 6 figures on a digital hot wallet. What we call a hot wallet is my wallet on my phone. Okay, a hot wallet is a wallet that has a connection to the internet. Okay, because at the end of the day, while Bitcoin is open source, these phones aren't. We don't know what kind of backdoors are in here. If anybody can take control of your phone or anything like that, they can steal your money. There's another layer to storing your Bitcoin, which is called cold storage. That's what we recommend for higher amounts. We do consulting on that as well. Cold storage, the way we do it, the cold storage device does not touch the internet. We actually sign for transactions without ever going onto the internet. It is absolutely, it's magic basically, but it's an amazing technology. It is something that, again, guys, I've been doing this for 5 years. It took me a very long time. I don't want to overwhelm with the amounts of things that you can do, but there is never going to be a point where I can tell you, you are 100% secure. Because even my company still has security exposure areas where we have to always watch out for. We're always growing and mitigating different security issues, but there is no binary solution of saying you're secure. it always comes down to, look, if somebody who has $1 billion is going to do different things to secure their Bitcoin. Somebody having $1,000 to $100,000 is going to do different things. But what you're doing, most of the stuff that's available, if you're doing it properly and you're doing the necessary steps, and again, like I said, we can help guide people with those ways, you're going to do a lot to mitigate issues. Now, security has other issues with Bitcoin. One of the issues is, unfortunately, death is a reality of life. Now, Bitcoin has great things in the sense of, it's sovereign wealth. Okay, great. Well, what happens if, God forbid, you pass away or you become incapacitated, you go into a coma, and only you are the one person available that can have access to your Bitcoin? What do you do there? So we actually have different solutions where I want you to think of Bitcoin is programmable money. So let's say you have a group of people, you have 5 signers, but you have to have 3 of them to sign off on a transaction. So there's a variety of different things. I'm sorry if it's not as a clear cut of an answer, but it's not a clear cut topic. But there's always more that you can do with security. I would not recommend storing significant amounts of money on a hot wallet, but it's a great way to get started and kind of familiarize yourself with the asset.
Yeah, good stuff. And Austin's got another question. I love the questions. Keep them coming, Austin.
I love it. Keep them coming.
And it's around how to purchase Bitcoin. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin being purchased through Wealthsimple versus through Decentralized network? And do you think Bitcoin will need to be government controlled in the future? That's a loaded question. Let's circle on the Wealthsimple and that part of the question.
Okay. All right. So first, I was never a big fan of Wealthsimple. They're making changes now. But before, when you would buy on Wealthsimple, you were buying just digits on a screen. You were not able to actually take possession of that Bitcoin. So if you bought Bitcoin, the price went up, and you're saying, hey, you know what? I want to take possession of this because I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with this asset. I learned about hot wallets, cold storage, all that fun stuff. You actually couldn't send the Bitcoin off their platform. You had to sell it back to Canadian dollars. You had to record that capital gains taxable event. And then you can take your cash, and then you have to go to another exchange to buy the Bitcoin. There's a lot of exchanges like that. I'm a little bit biased. I recommend onebitcoin.ca, but we sell Bitcoin as well. But there are plenty of amazing exchanges out there, especially in Canada. Now, regarding the government issue, you have a lot of those hardcore Bitcoiners where it's like, it's a digital asset, the government can stay out of my business. Well, no, I don't think you can ever buy real estate without going through FinTrack, right? We deal with FinTrack all the time. We have to know who our clients are, KYC, AML. We abide by the same rules with Bitcoin as well, right? We are a money service business. We're recognized by the government. We have to make sure we are doing all that due diligence with all our clients before we buy and sell. Somebody buys more than $10,000 worth of Bitcoin in cash, we have to report it. So we all deal with the same reporting criteria. There are tons of exchanges out there. There's BitBuy, Bull Bitcoin, a whole bunch of them. As long as you're comfortable with them, I would do some due diligence on each company. I would look at their reviews online and just make sure that they're a reputable one. And anything that sounds too good to be true, it usually is. There's a lot of scammers out there, guys, because this is the Wild West. There's so much misinformation and so much of an uneducated public on this asset. It's very easy to, pull the wool over their eyes and just kind of fool them into something, right? We own Bitcoin ATMs around Durham region. We have notices on there saying the government does not want your Bitcoin. If anyone's telling you that you owe a government X amount of dollars and you have to send them in Bitcoin, it is a scam. The issue with Bitcoin is it is a final settlement. That's a huge thing. It is a bearer asset. If you have that Bitcoin in your hands, nobody else can access it unless you make the decision to send it to them. So the only way that you can really lose it is if you get scammed into sending to the wrong person, you get hacked, or these kinds of things. But it is a final bearer asset. So tons of companies out there that sell it. KYC is a part of it. There are a lot of people in the Bitcoin community who are not fans of it. I understand why. But at the end of the day, it's just the world that we live in. And I don't have any issues with the government knowing I have Bitcoin because our tax laws only means I'm going to get taxed on it when I sell. And I'm never going to sell my Bitcoin. So therefore, I'm never going to get taxed on it. So,
and that's a whole nother probably three.
That's a whole other, that's it.
And in my experience too with Wealthsimple, it was, first of all, they make it easy, right? And point of entry is really easy. Click, boom, I got I got Bitcoin, I got Ethereum, and boom, it's easy as that. But as you said, it wasn't until I started educating myself, Jacob, I'm like, well, now what do I do with it? I can't do anything with it. It's just like buying a stock, right? You go up and down as the price goes up, but I couldn't send it anywhere. And that's exactly what Jacob's talking about, is make sure whatever you're going to get into, make sure that you have access to do things with it, like put it in your digital wallet or what have you. This might be a loaded question and perhaps not the topic for today, but how do I want to ask this? Do you explore the leverage side of Bitcoin as well, and leveraging against it to borrow and to do other investments with it?
Yes and no. So I'm a pretty one-track guy now. Look, I opened up a TD Waterhouse account on my 18th birthday. I learned how to read a stock table in the back of the Toronto Sun when I was 14 years old. I've always been involved in stocks, real estate investing, all that fun stuff. We're all realtors. Again, I love talking to realtors because you guys understand a lot of the main things. When you're looking at a piece of land, we look at the highest and best use, right? The only time I invest in something outside of Bitcoin at the moment is if there is going to be a potential for a higher income or higher return on investment for the short term. So I do investments. I still do flips. I still do certain investments. I will leverage my Bitcoin to borrow against it to do it. Now, I highly recommend against leveraging if you're not comfortable with it. I don't leverage if you have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, don't leverage at all, because it's a very volatile asset and you do not want to get margin called and not have the money to actually, make that play, because then you're going to lose your equity, right? So leverage is a scary game. I tell people for the first little while, when you're getting yourself comfortable with it, just buy and hold. Again, it is a bearer asset. If you own X amount of Bitcoin or X amount of sats in your wallet, that is yours. You don't need to borrow against it. You don't have anything owing to anyone else out there in the world. No one can make a claim on it against it. Now, when you leverage, you're going to have to send that Bitcoin to an exchange, right? Now you're getting back into the financialized products. So long answer short, I do it. I recommend it. It's a great way to do it. It's you're borrowing against an asset that's going to continuously go up, and you're borrowing a dollar thing that is going to continuously go down. So if you're doing your ratios properly, I think it's absolutely brilliant, but I wouldn't recommend people to do it to trade or to speculate anymore unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah. And the point that I was really hoping that people would get there is, just like real estate, there's many different ways to look at it. And you said it perfectly, highest and best use. And if you've got an asset that's sitting there like your house that's paid off and it's not generating other funds for you, that house you've worked hard, as Marvin has always said, our previous owner of our brokers, the founder of our brokers, you've worked incredibly hard to pay off your house. Now it's time for your house to work incredibly hard for you, just like Bitcoin and some of your other assets, right? Yeah.
Like I gotta say, we're not in a financial system anymore where having a paid off house is a positive. I think it's absolute, and regardless of what you're buying, whether you're buying Bitcoin or you're buying more real estate, I think having a paid off house, it's an opportunity cost that you should be borrowing against it and reinvesting and let that money work for you, because we live in a world of literally just cheap debt. That's what the entire financial system is. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I think it's extremely important to make your equity work for you.
Yeah. Very good. Any other questions coming in here? Let me just see here. Make sure I hadn't missed anything. Austin, you're always good for at least another question. And Tony, this is good stuff. And what I love about this is not to say like this is the future and this is where everything's going. However, I think Bitcoin, and as you described here, Jacob, they've already established themselves as, top 10 asset in the world. So you don't want to just close your eyes to it or fold your arms and say you don't understand it. Take the time to do some research and understand it.
I think that can be that's the biggest mistake. Look, 5 years ago, the reaction I would get from people was actual anger. They thought I was like, I had a lot of realtor friends. I go out for lunch. I go, guys, take a look at this. And I'd see the respect they had for me literally drain from their face in real time, because they thought either I was trying to scam them or I was getting scammed, and they felt pity for me. And, the public stigma towards this was very different before. Now at 2022, to just say not interested, I don't understand how you cannot be interested in a digital asset that is revolutionizing everything, that has grown 100% plus a year for 13 years. It's growing parabolically, including the years that it's gone down 80%, right? I don't understand how somebody can be like, nah, not for me. I'm going to look at other stuff. I think everyone needs to have some like 0.1 between 0.1 and 100% exposure. That's up to you, but anything over zero.
Yeah. Yeah. And a good way to, and I don't want to get into this conversation about inflation and the value of our dollar going down and down and down every day, but that essentially that's what's happening around us. And to kind of sum up what you were saying earlier, if you're sitting in cash thinking, oh, I got my nest egg or my rainy day fund, just think about this, that rainy day fund gets smaller and smaller every day just by sitting on it because of inflation and other things. And whereas if you can slow that down or reverse it by using your knowledge to invest either in real estate or in Bitcoin, that's a good hedge, wouldn't you say, Jacob?
It hurts my feelings when people tell me they've got GICs or T-bills in the bank right now. It just blows my mind. The 10-year bond is at 1.6% right now. The US 10-year bond is 1.6, 1.7-ish. American inflation rate was 7% if you're looking at the government numbers. So that means if you buy a 10-year bond this year, you're already underwater 6%. You're losing money. Like it's just math, guys. I understand the reason why we have to have monetary policy. That's a whole discussion, but we're at a point now where our money is being devalued in front of our eyes. It's not something we can ever ignore anymore. Savings is no longer being able to put $5,000 in the savings account and letting the savings account do what it does. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. And you have to have your money working for you, whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks, dividends, whatever it is. Cash is trash. I look at cash as a liability now. I don't hold cash on my balance sheets I don't need within the next 90 days. If I need it for 90 days, we keep them, we spread it out for the accounts that we have to do, and we have the expenses allocated. But anything more than that, we are not holding cash because it's a melting ice cube.
Yeah, good. No, that's exactly it. And talk to us a little bit about too. So, I've got 3 kids and 2 of them are teenagers. Can my teenagers open up a crypto account and own Bitcoin, or is there a certain age, or what? Talk to us about that.
You can, so to buy Bitcoin, you have to actually have a driver's license and government ID. So to actually be able to buy it and set up an account with us, like at One Bitcoin or Wealthsimple or BitBuy, you have to be 18 years old. But to actually get a Bitcoin wallet, you have to just have the connection to an internet and be able to go on the iPhone, the App Store, Apple Play, or whatever the store is, and you can just download the app. I've gifted my nephews and nieces Bitcoin for the last 5 years. They have Bitcoin, right? I give them, when my nieces come over, if they want to do some chores or want to do something, here you go, I'm paying you in Bitcoin. They ask for Bitcoin now. So anybody can have a Bitcoin wallet, but to be able to buy it through the actual bigger exchanges, you have to have an ID, but you can also buy from Bitcoin ATMs. There's a website called localbitcoins.com where literally anywhere you are in the world, you put your location in there and there's going to be 5 to 10 to 20 people in your area that are willing to meet with you to sell you Bitcoin directly as well. So it is, Bitcoin is like water and it's going to go wherever it's going to go. And if you're looking for it, you're gonna be able to find it.
No, that's awesome. So what I took from that is I can go purchase Bitcoin myself and gift it to my children, just like that.
Absolutely. Like that.
That's what I'm doing after this phone call or after this.
I love it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Because, well, think about this too, then there's many of us on this call with kids, and I see Steph and others that have kids, yeah, we have an investment property for them. We have this for them. However, that takes $100,000 or $200,000 as an entry point. Whereas this, as we talked about today, it's literally, what you have in your savings account. Right. And anything to get started. And that could be $100 to 10,000 or more. It's the entry point is so much more attainable. Yeah. Thanks, Steph. Agreed, Gary. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. It's a lot more attainable. And again, it is savings technology because again, even if you buy 100 sats, you can buy 2,000 sats for $1. I think that's the conversion. So if you bought 2,000 sats, that 2,000 sats is now yours forever. in the next 10 years, doesn't matter what is happening outside the Bitcoin protocol and the network and whatever's happening with the financial system, whatever it is, Bitcoin, you're still going to have 2,000 sats of that entire network, right? It cannot be diluted. You cannot have your savings diluted away from you. Now, I know you say we're not going to get into the inflation topic, but I'm a firm believer in that savings should be a right for everybody. Everybody should be able to actually save their money instead of having to always go out and invest it, right? We have a financial system where teachers have to figure out what to do with their mutual funds and ETFs and make sure that they're making money instead of just being able to make money at what they're really good at and put it away and continue focusing on living their lives, right? Everyone's a stockbroker as well as what their main job is as well. And Bitcoin kind of removes that from the equation.
I like Steph. I like your comment, Steph. Send a picture of your daughter getting her Bitcoin. She'll know what to do with it more than we will. Yeah, definitely.
They definitely will. They definitely will because they're born in the digital age. They understand it a lot more, and it's a lot more natural for them really to pick it up. It's pretty interesting to see kids kind of deal with the Bitcoin stuff.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So as we wrap up here, let me fire in your last little question or comment. This has been great. Great exposure, Jake. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you this question. I always like asking people this as they've been in it, a number of years, just like yourself. And I'm gonna ask you to boil it down to one thing, which might be difficult, but thinking back, what do you wish you knew the day you started that you know now?
Ooh, that I know nothing.
Okay.
I came in when I first heard about it. Like my cousin told me about this when Bitcoin was probably about $700. And I laughed at him. I go, "What are you talking about, man?" I go, "He's younger than me." I go, "You're gonna get scammed so hard. You're dealing with magic internet money. Get out of here." And I ignored it and I laughed it off because I thought I knew. Because like I said earlier, I opened up my stock account at 18 years old. I've read so many books. I know my stuff. And if I had prevented that, if I had said, "Hey, maybe I should take a look at this. This seems pretty interesting," and let my ego to the side, I would have been a lot further ahead. So I think for everybody, it's just, again, no one person on the planet has ever heard of Bitcoin and said, "Yeah, that's a great idea." We all kind of just ignore it, shrug it off and say it's a Ponzi, it's stupid, it's internet money, whatever it is. But I think it's important to just set it aside and say, let me look at this with clear eyes and just what am I missing out on here? Because this is now a $1 trillion asset, which is 3 times bigger than the big 5 banks combined in Canada. Not a joke. It's not a little toy. It's a big asset, and it's just getting started.
Yeah, well, that's great. Great. And I love the comments. Steph, Dina, this has all been good, Gail. Dina's got a great question. You somewhat answered it earlier. Should we jump straight into a cold wallet for security rather than the app? And I know I started with the app, still have the app, yet my holdings are pretty small compared to others for the moment. But what do you say there?
I think it's important to have both so you can kind of understand it. I wouldn't jump into cold storage right away because you need to run your own node to actually have the truest form of cold storage. So there's just layers of this. So I think really important to just get started, buy 5, 10, $100 that you're comfortable with, just to play around with it, keep an eye on it, and then continue to educate yourself and continue to read more. It is an avalanche of information, right? There's no easy way to just say, here's a one-page summary sheet that's going to kind of explain everything to you. It's just, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. It's just going to be using it and getting more comfortable with it, and then having questions come up while you're using it, and then digging into that and going from there. So I think it's important to have it all. Get started with the hot wallet, and then go from there. And then we can kind of recommend you some cold storage ideas and all that fun stuff. I did see a question about QBTC that I just want to touch on as well. QBTC, ETF, Bitcoin, like I mentioned, we have our own Bitcoin RRSP product coming up. That's great. It's going to allow you to take advantage of tax things that are available in Canada, but it's not true Bitcoin. You're still relying on a financial institution. You're still relying on a bank, on somebody to hold your keys. As we said earlier, or somebody commented earlier here, not your keys, not your coins, right? The true premise of Bitcoin is taking possession of your own asset yourself. There's a lot of headaches that come with it as well because you're taking responsibility for it all, but they're very different. They have their positives and reasons that I would recommend having Bitcoin in a financial account as well, but I don't equate them the same. True Bitcoin is just owning it, having it on your node, and verifying it yourself.
Well said. Good stuff. Jacob, how do people get a hold of you?
Jacob at onebitcoin.ca. Visit us at onebitcoin.ca as well. online. Maybe I'll just throw that email down there. Price of Tomorrow is a phenomenal book. That's a really good one. I would actually recommend everyone to really read the Bitcoin Standard before Price of Tomorrow. Price of Tomorrow is great, but I think to really understand the Bitcoin value proposition, it is a phenomenal book. I actually have 150 copies here that we've sent out to our clients because I believe in that book so much. So Price of Tomorrow is a phenomenal book, but I would also recommend the Bitcoin Standard by Safety Namos. I just dropped my email address down there as well.
Oh, well done. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Can I say something real quick, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. Who are we talking to?
It's Matthew. I don't have a camera, unfortunately.
Matthew. Nice to see you, Matthew.
Thank you. Hey, Jacob, great presentation. I'm a Bitcoiner myself, been in it since 2017. One thing that I noticed from your presentation is that you had a good understanding of how stocks worked, how economies worked prior to getting into Bitcoin. Is that true?
Right. Yeah, it is.
As someone that tries to orange pill people that don't understand kind of money, where money came from, the evolution of money over time, and also, you know, where we are today in economics in the game, it's hard for them if they don't understand that to really understand why Bitcoin is potentially so important. So how do they educate themselves potentially to the past to understand why Bitcoin is so important for the future?
I wish I knew the one-liner answer to that. That is actually a really good question. It's everyone's different. Everyone's life experiences. There's different things that click for different people. That's why I've tried to bring it down to people's trades. Like with accountants, I tell people it's triple ledger accounting system instead of double ledger. With lawyers and agents, I tell them trust account. I think the most important thing is for people to actually start asking questions and be like, where do you think money comes from? And then when they say, well, you know, the government prints it. I said, okay. The one thing that really works actually for me is when I tell people, if I'm paying you money, so you're exchanging your time and your efforts that you're good at, and I'm giving you something as payment. Would you rather get paid in something that I can press a button and duplicate it and print more of with no end to it? Or would you rather me pay you in something that is very difficult to reproduce? And 100 of 100 times, you're going to say, well, I'd rather something you're going to pay that's hard to reproduce. We're so brainwashed in this financial system that inflation is necessary, or the monetary system. We have $400 million of weekly printing of mortgage-backed securities is not an issue for the public. This is fine. Well, no, look what's happening to the real estate value. So I just tell people, look around what's happening, right? How much of a raise did you get? We're lucky. We get a 30% raise. We did really nothing new, but the product we're selling is going up in value. So we end up getting a raise. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people who are 9 to 5 running businesses, just ask them, what's happening to your expenses right now? What's happening to your income? And when they start kind of just comparing it to what they're seeing in front of them, it's just saying, look, at the end of the day, they have to want it themselves. They have to want to educate themselves and be interested in it. If they just keep brushing it off, I'm at a point now where I don't even bother discussing with people that are aggressive or just nonchalant. I say, okay, whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here to help out.
Yeah, and circling back what you said earlier, a great question, Matthew. Michael Saylor's view on Bitcoin, and you've probably seen it. They call it the masterclass that he did with Tom Bailu. I posted a link to that video earlier, and I can do it again. That is a great overview of kind of where we came from and why we need to move this way. You've seen it, I'm sure.
Michael Saylor, I want to send him a bottle of wine one day because of the amount of information he has just like shot straight into my brain. Has really helped me be able to verbalize and kind of work on my thesis with Bitcoin. He's absolutely a brilliant guy. I've listened to him, I've probably a few hundred hours of his podcast. So highly recommended listening to Michael Saylor.
Yeah, there you go. All right, my friends. Well, that kind of wraps up an hour that we had scheduled for this. And thanks for jumping on with us. Jacob, thanks for enlightening us and probably opening up the door to 1,000 more questions, but that was the goal of today.
I love it.
Yeah. And
thank you guys for having me here. And like I said, any questions, anything you need, I love talking about Bitcoin. I love educating people and answering questions and helping them kind of get that light to click about Bitcoin. So anything you need, guys, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you, and yeah, throw them my way, and I'd love to help out.
Beautiful, beautiful. And my challenge to everyone here is take action. And that action, it doesn't have to be going out and buying Bitcoin at 203 today. What it means is start educating yourself and start learning and researching and asking questions and getting into conversations where Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is the conversation. And I know, I don't have the date in front of me, but I know Nathan is going to be hosting a mastermind around this conversation so we can continue to grow together. So Jacob, again, thank you. Friends, reach out to Jacob if you have questions or you wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.